Hey, John, it's good to see you.
Hey, Ted, you caught me eating a cookie.
Hey, eat that cookie. That's John Kiriakou over there, cookie eater, cookie monster of the hour. I'm Ted Rall in New York, and he's down there in D.C. We're doing DeProgram again. We're moving to a 3-day-a-week schedule starting next week, and even more news after that. Will be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 5 p.m. Today's show was delayed by 6 p.m. 2 to 6 p.m. Eastern. No big deal, but FYI, John's there in the path of God, who's apparently sending vicious thunderstorms.
The skies are black right now in Arlington, Virginia. And I was telling Ted just before we started, and so I'll apologize in advance, that, first this morning they gave us a severe thunderstorm watch. Then a couple hours ago, it became a severe thunderstorm warning. Then an hour ago, it was severe thunderstorm and flash flood warning. Now they're telling us take cover.
Oh, wow.
And because our electrical system is akin to the electrical system in Cairo or Bangkok, we tend to lose power relatively frequently.
That's surprising. I think of Arlington, Virginia. It's like when you look at that map, you see the square,
right,
and the triangle. It's really a diamond, right? And you see
right.
The 3/4 of the diamond is DC, and you're like, well, what's that other side in DC? That's Arlington.
Yeah,
it's kind of like technically in DC, sort of.
It used to be DC, and then Virginia, after a while, said we want our part back because DC is made up of a part donated by Maryland and a part donated by Virginia, and Virginia took theirs back.
One of the great real estate insurance scams by our first president, but that's
Houdini. Okay, that's already the best comment of the day. If I happen to see God, ask him if he knows where the Epstein files are. And we've been talking about this all day today.
And we will be talking about that. All right, so here's what's what right now. We're going to be talking about the investigation into former CIA Director John Brennan, former FBI Director James Comey, over the RussiaGate hoax. I think it's fair. Trump calls it that. He's not wrong. We'll be talking about Epstein and how the Trump administration has basically circular filed the Epstein investigation, and we'll get into that. We're going to talk about ICE at war. Really crazy shit going on with ICE. A bunch of people are impersonating ICE people to commit crimes because it's easy to do that because they don't identify themselves and they cover their faces with masks.
Yeah,
you can cover yourself. You can dress like that and go rape someone or rob someone or kill them and try to get away with it. And people have actually been doing that. I don't think that's the main motivation, but Democratic senators are about to propose a bill that will ban ICE from wearing masks. So we'll get into the whole ICE wars. Plus, there was that crazy ambush at an ICE office in Texas.
Yes.
AI, always interesting. So back 5 years ago, I published a book called The Stringer. It's a graphic novel in which bad actors, basically use AI deep fakes to impersonate world leaders and then start wars. They provoke wars. You can imagine, like, fake Putin calls Trump and calls him names and says, fuck you, I'm coming for you. And then Trump gets pissed off and hits the button, right? I mean, that could happen.
Yes.
So that kind of is starting to happen. It happened to the chief of staff of the Trump administration, Susie Wiles, and it happened to Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Some AI imposter talked to 3 foreign ministers, a governor, and a Congress member. Zoran Mondani is driving the establishment absolutely insane. The first polls are out for the general election. He's leading handily, and the establishment favorite is coming in pathetically.
Did you happen to see the piece at The Hill today, Ted, where Democrats are starting to panic because he's a Muslim?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, can you imagine going on a podcast, for example, or on a TV interview and saying, oh, I'm really panicking about this Jerry Nadler. He's a Jew. Oh, my God.
You know how they are.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so that's exactly.
What are we supposed to make of this? Okay, he's Muslim. So what?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. Like, you know how you can still make fun of fat people? That's still okay.
Yeah.
You can still make fun, and you can still be racist.
Yep.
Muslim people. Islamophobia is still okay.
That's right.
And it's coming from the so-called liberal democratic establishment.
Yeah. That's right. It's the liberal Democrats that are jumping up and down.
So
There was a guy today. I'm sorry. I
go
was
ahead.
with him at the airport in Fort Lauderdale, and he was telling me that he's a liberal Democrat. He's a lifelong guy. Was in his 60s, I'd say, lifelong progressive. But we got to stop these Muslims from taking over the country. They're going to give us Sharia law. Next thing you know. It's
Yeah,
like,
right.
As if what Sharia law is.
Yeah, and also, yeah, both. He's going to be the most interesting guy because he's going to bring communism and Sharia law.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how that works.
No, not sure exactly how that works.
It'll be super interesting to see, though. All right, well, let's get into this situation with two of your favorite people, John, Comey and Brennan. So basically, there was an after-action report where the CIA tried to, whenever it has a mistake, you should explain this. You should explain about lessons learned reviews, which, by the way, every organization ought to have. And they conducted one of these things, and they came up with the, I think, widespread, well-known understanding that the Steele Dossier ought not to have been included in any investigation of alleged Russian interference in favor of Donald Trump in 2016, but the ruling came down to do it anyway, and that went counter to basic CIA protocols. Take it away.
When the CIA is writing a paper, especially a paper that has big political implications, you want literally every stakeholder in the building to buy into it, right? So you get this tasking. Are the Russians trying to help Donald Trump get elected president?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The evidence said no.
Mm-hmm.
The evidence said Vladimir Putin prefers Donald Trump to Hillary Clinton. Okay, so what? We all have a preference. Whether it's Donald
I didn't need
Trump.
the CIA to tell me that. I read Foreign Policy Magazine, and
Exactly.
Foreign Policy Magazine told me that.
So no big deal that he has a preference. Were the Russians actively trying to help Donald Trump get elected? The answer was no. There was no evidence. But as the
only thing there was, right, there was the IRA, the Internet Research Agency,
that's right,
which was a troll farm that basically a clickbait outfit.
Brian Becker has stripped that down to its bare studs. We should talk about that.
That's the only real evidence there was.
Yeah.
But it's a Russian company, but that doesn't make it the Russian government.
And Lulu is right. The Israelis certainly were trying to get Donald Trump elected president.
That's
100%. But there was no evidence that the Russians were. So the CIA analysts, imagine this: they're sitting around this table and they're debating the evidence point by point by point, and they've got the Steele Dossier, which says all kinds of crazy stuff that is utterly unprovable. So they come to this conclusion that
this is like where the prostitute piss allegations,
correct,
stuff like that.
Exactly. So they come to the conclusion that there is no evidence that this is happening. John Brennan says, "Yeah, there is. I'm convinced. So your analytic judgment is going to be."
Steele himself, the author of the dossier, say this is just a compendium of rumors that was meant for opposition research. This is not. I have no confidence in any of this being true.
I want to talk about that too, because that's very important here. So Brennan, being the what was he at the time? CIA director, ordered them to change their analytic judgment to be that, yes, the Russians are trying to steal the election for Trump. And then when literally everybody objected to including the Steele Dossier as evidence, the deal that they struck with Brennan was that they attached it as an appendix. Okay? So this was false, and they all knew it was false. Now, let me tell you about the Steele Dossier. I know Chris Steele. I worked with Chris Steele for a number of years closely on an operation that we did together in the Middle East. Chris Steele did exactly what a collector, an operations officer, does. He goes out there. He asks all of his sources, do you know anything about Donald Trump vis-a-vis the Russians? And everybody just parrots back whatever rumors they've heard. They picked up a story in a bar. They heard about these prostitutes peeing on the bed that Obama slept in. And it's not Chris Steele's job to determine what's true and what's not. As an operations officer, your job is to write it down and send it back to the analysts, and it's their job to decide if it's true or not. Mm-hmm. But because it was so explosive and it was so anti-Trump, Brennan just decided to embrace it as fact and run with it. And Comey ended up doing the same thing.
And they basically totally politicized this. I want to get back to the Internet Research Agency because it's the only meat on the bone, right?
Yeah,
such as it is, and it's a pretty skinny bird. So basically, you have the IRA, which there's no evidence that is part or works for or even with the Russian government. No. It's a private company. Yes. They were looking for clicks. Most of the ads that they ran on Facebook related to non-political stuff. They also had, basically they were trying to go for clicks everywhere they could. They even ran pro-Hillary Clinton ads in 2016, about the same number. As far as we can tell, no more than $100,000 to $200,000 was spent on all of the ads, including the non-political and the Hillary Clinton ads. So probably we're talking about a few $1,000 maybe worth of ads in a $7 billion election, right?
And $7 billion. 50% of the Russian money was spent after the election was over. Okay. And of the other 50%, half was spent in states that were solidly red or solidly blue. There was no attempt to swing the election. The attempt was to just piss people off, to create these memes, boost the memes, get people angry, make Democrats angry at Republicans, Republicans angry at Democrats. And it was peanuts. I spent more on Facebook to advertise my speaking tour than the IRA spent to allegedly, steal the American presidential election. Ridiculous.
Right. So like basically this company, it was a drop in the drop of a bucket that could not have had any kind of substantive effect on the election.
Yes.
And it didn't. And whatever minute microscopic effect it had was not on behalf of the Kremlin.
Yep.
That's basically where we're at. Right.
And there was no proof that it was done at the behest of the Kremlin. Ted, I think you look blurry to me too. I wonder if you're getting the storm.
That could well be. I don't know. We'll see what happens. It comes and goes sometimes. This is a busy hour of the day. I think what happens is I live in a building. I think people are coming home, and I share that connection with them. It should resettle. If I have to reboot, maybe while you're saying something long-winded, I will do that.
No worries.
Okay, so anyway, that's all right. Everybody's seen my beautiful face. They don't need the high-res version. But okay, so now what's going on is that the current CIA director has made a criminal referral over to the FBI, asking the Department of Justice to launch a criminal investigation into these two men about their roles. John, what kind of charges theoretically could they face?
Unfortunately, the only charge that they're being investigated on is contempt of Congress or making a false statement. So, those are felonies, or they can be. Making a false statement is a felony, but it's punishable by 0 to 6 months in jail, with 6 months being the maximum if you are a career criminal. Mm-hmm. So they're not going to go to prison, even if they are taken to trial and found guilty.
But it would be a big deal.
Oh, dude, it would. I don't mean to gloat, especially with what I've been through in my own life, but John Brennan ruined my life. And now he's getting a little taste of his own medicine. It was funny to me today because I followed this on all the networks this morning, and he's gone mute. So is Comey. And
Oh,
I don't know.
I saw Mr. Brennan on MSNBC today.
Today I missed it.
Party, yeah, where he was basically he doubled down and said that he still remains confident that Russia, everything worked out the way he said.
Good.
Trying to interfere. John, do you have any qualms or problems with the fact? I mean, look, I know the answer. I know my answer to this. My answer is this is political and it's partisan.
Totally.
Doesn't mean that it's not right.
Exactly. And then the New York Times, I'm sure you saw it too. I got a push notification from the New York Times. Let me think. I landed at like 4:30, so it was like 4:45. The New York Times is reporting that the Secret Service has been following Comey, and because he allegedly made that 8647 threat. But it's like, finally you guys get a little taste of your own medicine. Yeah. They're out there ruining people's lives, ruining families. And then they're like, oh my God, I can't believe they're going after me. I am such a patriot. This is all politically motivated.
I mean, I think about like Brennan in relative to the Russia thing. I mean, it's so like I mean, we're out of work because of that. It's also just like completely thoughtless, uncaring. Like it's just like we can do whatever the hell we want,
anything we want,
and nothing bad's gonna happen. I mean, just think about that letter, right? That like tried to change the results of the election, where they signed that letter, right? The 50 former intelligence agency community people.
I knew every single one of them.
And they're all, it's all, I mean, it's all lawyered, right? Like it's written in such a way that it all has plausible deniability.
They have reason to believe that the Russians may have
all the hallmarks of.
It bears all the hallmarks of a Russian disinformation plot.
Yeah,
they never said it was.
You really deprogram, right? Is to point out these kind of like phrases that you will see in government when it's the media. They'll say it raises questions about. That's like their favorite phraseology. Raises questions. Well, not really. Maybe you're raising the question, but
it doesn't raise any questions.
Watch for the passive voice. Always.
That's right. Always. That's exactly right. And every one of those signatories was a member of the Senior Intelligence Service under Brennan, or along with Brennan. Every one of them was a Democrat, and every one of them wants to be something bigger than he was at the CIA.
So our regular viewer, Rid, asks, do you really think Pam Bondi, not Blondie, has what it takes to punish Brennan?
Not necessarily, but I think it doesn't really matter in this case because, well, look, because I'm deep in the pardon process, I'm sort of liaising with a lot of very high-level Republicans that I otherwise wouldn't ever have access to. And everybody says Pam Bondi is a complete sweetheart, nicest woman you'd ever want to meet, and completely in over her head as Attorney General. But this, I think, is not going to be a decision that's made by the Attorney General as the Attorney General. This is a decision that's going to be made by Donald Trump. Either off with their heads or
she's not an independent AG in the way that some of the previous ones have tried to be, right?
Right. Future. Yes, actually, I just spoke there in, I'm going to say, October of last year. So yes, I'm happy to come back to GW anytime.
GW being George Washington University.
George Washington University. Got both of my degrees there. Hey, I got an offer today, not an offer, a request to debate at the Oxford Union.
Ooh, that's exciting.
I'm so excited.
You should be. I got to debate one time at the Yale Political Union, and I thought that was awesome. It was about the Iraq War. That's going to be better.
This one, it's a letter from the president of Oxford, and let me open it right now. Here it is. The topic is, this House believes that 9/11 was weaponized to expand the American empire. Yes or no?
Duh.
So great, right?
I mean, it was, yeah. That
I
would
can't wait. I can't wait. And they gave me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 dates to choose from.
wow.
Awesome. Can't wait.
Does it pay? I have to ask.
They don't mention pay. Please let us know. It would be a pleasure and privilege to host you. Please do not hesitate to contact me with any questions. Okay. But it says, we have had as speakers the Dalai Lama, President Reagan, President Nixon, Her Late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, Morgan Freeman, Shakira, and Malala Yousafzai. So I'm going to say yes.
Well, yeah, I would say I've heard of those people. Yeah.
Why not?
So John, comment here from Spotsy. So to be honest, it seems hard to believe that the Russians wouldn't try to somehow influence the election. Moreover, the 2020 Senate Intelligence Committee report was fairly bipartisan. Why would it seem hard? I think actually it would be Putin is a very, very methodical and careful person.
He's very conservative.
And I don't, small c conservative as well as capital C conservative. I don't see him taking a chance like that. I mean, that's really, sticking your dick way into the glory hole, right? I mean, you really don't know what's on the other side.
That's awesome.
It just doesn't seem like a good idea.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't know. I mean, like, what if you got caught and then it's
then what?
It's cause for World War III.
I was just going to say, it's an act of war.
Yeah.
If you try to do that, it's an act. Never mind, the United States has done it dozens of times.
Sure. Yeah.
And we know that because they've declassified most of the documents. But seriously, it's an act of war. If the Russians were trying to actually steal the election for one candidate over another, you can't do that.
No, not to mention if you lose, that other candidate is your sworn mortal enemy and will fuck you so hard. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Absolutely, yes.
Seems really like this is just, it doesn't fit, or it just doesn't comport with the pattern of this man who's been incredibly consistent. I mean, just look at this war. I've never seen any side in a war who has the same war aims from 8 years before the conflict began to 3.5 years into the conflict. Now he has the same 4 things. He wants those same 4 things, not more, not less, just wants those 4 things. I came for those 4 things. Those are the 4 things I want. Those are the 4 things you should give me. 4 things I want them, not 3, not 5, 4. That's him.
That's it.
Yeah.
I've read that Menachem Begin used to be the same way. He would always start off negotiations with his bottom line, which nobody could understand why he would do that. But then he would say, I want A, B, C, and D. And then he would go like this, and that would be it. And sometimes negotiations would last for a day, and then everybody would go home happy, or sometimes they would last for years and nobody would get anything.
Well, so are we deprogrammed on this issue? I mean, what happens? What's going to happen?
Well, let me just
let's get into that. Yeah.
Yeah. There's going to be this investigation. It's an FBI investigation. And the way these things play out is, well, it really shouldn't take any more than a few months, right? It could drag on for a year. I mean, my investigation took 3 years.
Politically, it would help the Republicans to have this really break in the middle of next year for the midterms.
Without any question. That would be the best case scenario for the Republicans, middle of next year. So you could drag it out, or you can finish it quickly, indict them quickly, and then have the Justice Department try them in the middle of next year. I said a minute ago,
popcorn.
I said a minute ago that you don't go to prison for something like this. Well, you know what? Let me retract that, because General Mike Flynn was found guilty of making a false statement. The sentencing recommendation, according to the Justice Department sentencing guidelines, was for 1 year of probation, and he was sentenced to prison, like actual prison, and then Trump pardoned him. So who knows? Because it's political, it could go either way.
Yeah.
It could go either way.
So, I mean, I guess, and do you think either of these two guys would be inclined to make a deal?
You know what, Ted? You would make a deal. I would make a deal. I don't think these guys could make a deal politically. I don't think so. John Brennan making a deal?
I mean, so John
with Donald Trump's
is he
Justice
a
Department?
contributor to MSNBC, or is he just a frequent guest?
I don't think so.
Mhm.
I don't think he's a paid contributor anymore. I know that he's on the board of directors of Fordham University, where he graduated, and he's on a couple of defense contractors' boards of directors.
Mm.
Yeah, but I don't think he's taken MSNBC's money anymore.
And look, it is partisan, but frankly, it wouldn't have happened any other way, right? I mean, that's kind of the advantage of partisanship, is that, you know, the other party gets held to account.
Yes.
You know, I would like to see a few more things happen.
Yeah.
You know, so all right, we're going to be watching that story.
You and me both, man.
Yeah, no
Yes.
question. All right, let's talk about Epstein. So there was this crazy press conference with Attorney General Pam Bondi. She basically was sent out there. She feels more like a press secretary than an
Poor
attorney
thing.
when she goes out there.
I've been told.
She's told to say something that she may not always believe.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So she basically, what's been announced is, hey, we at the DOJ, we did a deep dive, as the president promised in the election, into the Epstein files. We wanted to find out if there was a address book. Bondi said when under oath, right? Like, in Congress,
Yeah.
oh, it's on my desk.
Yeah, right. Those were literally her words.
Yep.
It's on my desk.
And then now she's trying to walk this back. Peter Ducey from Fox News grilled her about it. He's a good reporter. He said,
He is actually.
And she said, well, what I meant is it all depends on what you mean by the meaning of it. And by it, I meant writ large, the case, the files for all of the Epstein stuff. I wasn't specifically referring to, the subject of your question.
She was flopping around like a fish that's been pulled out of the pond. In fact, Trump tried to save her by saying, wait a minute. Are you still asking questions about this non-story, about this creep who's not even alive anymore? I wouldn't answer it. If you want to answer the question, you go ahead and answer it. Right. And then she's like, yeah, I'll answer it. It's like, lady, that was your out. He didn't want you to answer it.
Right.
So
she couldn't follow the cue. She couldn't read the one person in the room she really needed to read.
Yeah, that was it.
So let's go. Let's like walk this through, right? So
yes. So
Epstein's sentenced for child trafficking. Ghislaine Maxwell, his familiar, like a vampire, takes the fall.
Yes.
As the procurer.
20 years.
It's understood that Epstein was not the only person who partook of these underaged and other women, mostly many underaged girls, I should say. And there were flights, the so-called Lolita Express, many of them dozens, lots of famous people involved. There were sordid parties at his townhouse on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. So many other men were involved. There's, according to the AG herself, there is video of men having sex with underage women that is being held. I guess it was on her desk at some point.
Right.
So she but there's no word at all on who those men were, whether their images were captured on film, whether there's testimony implicating those men from any of the witnesses in this case. None of the files are being released. The client list, she's now saying, didn't exist, although she confirmed previously that it did exist. It really reeks to high heaven, right? And so this is interesting to me, particularly as a creature of the left, because this is a civil war within MAGA world, right? I mean, this is a promise that Trump made to his populist base. We're going to find out about Epstein's victims, and we're going to go after the remaining perverts. Okay. And everyone should be in favor of that. right.
That's right.
And so now what we're being told basically was there was only one pervert and he croaked.
Yeah, which is nonsense.
And a pervert's assistant who is now in prison. And now people are saying, well, maybe she shouldn't be in prison if that's the case.
Michael Gardner is saying, what about the thousands of hours of video that were delivered to her?
Yes, what about them?
Exactly. What about them? Virginia Giuffre and 5 other women testified under oath that there was a room with an entire wall covered in banks of monitors, and the monitors were covering literally every room in the house and every bathroom. That's what a creep this guy was. Of course I'm stuck like that. My video is stuck. That's great. And I can't even see across the street.
That's your old buddies at Langley doing that too.
Oh my God. They did that on purpose. I swear to God, I'm going to flip out if anybody makes a screenshot. Okay, anyway.
It'll clear up.
Okay, finally.
There you go. You're back.
So they testified that there were guards. There's this huge staff at the island of men just monitoring all of these rooms and taping all of these tapes. There were apparently hundreds and hundreds of tapes. So who were the men? Who were the Johns? Question number 1. Question number 2, who were the staff members? Why weren't any of those people prosecuted, and where are the tapes? So, on the one hand, the MAGA people want to hear, well, maybe it wasn't as bad as everybody thought it was, and we overreacted, and the tapes really don't exist, and maybe somebody destroyed them. I said on Fox a couple nights ago, it's possible that they were destroyed. That's what the CIA does. The CIA destroys stuff all the time.
Like the torture video.
Like the torture videos, like MK Ultra documents. Just destroy it after being told not to. And Nick Otto, that's kind of my position, is that we don't have the videos because the Israelis have the videos. And we don't have J-Rock, we don't have any idea where his money came from, unless he was the gay lover of Les Wexner.
No one knows. Yeah, no one knows where the money came from. It certainly wasn't from his business. He never worked really.
Yeah.
So the whole thing's fishy. And the thing is, look, let's just say for the sake, here's how I game it out. Here's how I know that the Trump people are covering something up. It's a lie because there's a way if let's assume they're telling the truth.
Yeah.
Let's say it's you and me. We dig into it and we're like, holy shit, it's just not true.
Yeah.
Well, they could bring in a friendly journalist. They could say, hey, Peter Ducey, come here. We're going to give you access, put you in a room. You can look at all the files.
Exactly.
And you will sign an agreement that you're not going to reveal certain things, but we want you to come in and say basically broad strokes, confirm or deny what we're saying.
Yes.
So they could bring in someone from Fox, someone from the Wall Street Journal editorial page, someone from the New York Post, someone from Trump World, someone from, OAN, anyone, but bring in someone you trust. It would probably be better, honestly, to bring in a panel of journalists to go in there and just show that they said they're going to be transparent.
Yeah.
That's what transparency looks like. And it ain't happening.
Yeah. I have to agree. So every part of this stinks. None of this whole thing makes any sense. And the most important people in the world who have been identified as having gone to that island would be the ones to ensure that the right people got paid off and that none of this information saw the light of day. Hey, Tiny Dancer, when you compare how they came for P. Diddy, it's hard to imagine the feds have no black book. Interestingly enough, the black book went up for auction at Alexander Auctions of Maryland. The the reserve price was $75,000. The estimate was $75,000 to $100,000, and it didn't make the minimum. So it didn't sell, and it went back to the owner, whoever the owner happens to be. But why isn't that black book in the hands of the FBI doing their investigation rather than being up for sale at some auction?
Well, I mean, that's a good question, right?
Oh my God.
I mean,
this thing is purposely grabbing the most hideous shots of me.
You know who used to do that? Like liberal photographers used to love to do that to Nixon. And then they would publish like things that you'd be like, you know, but
that's right. That's not how you obscure the truth.
They loved doing that. So, I mean, I think for people, there's a lot of people who are not, especially who follow, more liberal media or more like the New York Times, who aren't really familiar with the theory that basically the Mossad used Epstein worked with the Mossad, basically conducting a massive wholesale honeypot operation in order to compromise famous people who would then basically do what they're told in order to have their predilections for 16-year-old girls not exposed, right? Can you sort of walk through what that theory is and how credible you think it is?
It's hard to say because there are so many different perspectives and so few statements that have actually been made on the record. What we have is allegations that, I mean, we know some of the names. We know Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, Prince Andrew, Alan Dershowitz, people of that ilk, of that level, who were invited.
Prince Andrew has a direct one-on-one accuser
that's right.
Who recently ended her own life.
That's right. Virginia Giuffre.
That's such a tragic and horrible.
Oh, yeah, she took her own life. Hold on, I'm answering Eskarad to cover for the Israelis. Right. Thank you, Eskarad. Okay, I'm having some real. Oh man, I'm afraid this tree across the street from me is going to smash my house.
Is it coming down hard right now?
Yeah, and it's wind and lightning. Like you could read a book by the lightning. There's so much of it.
Wow.
So anyway, there are so many, not just important people, but the world's most important people that are in this book. And some of them have a legit explanation. For example, there were allegations that Bobby Kennedy Jr. was on the Lolita Express. And he came out and he said, yes, I was on the Lolita Express because my wife happened to be at a dinner party where Epstein was, and she mentioned that they were going to Palm Beach for Easter, and he said, well, I'm going to my island. Why don't you come on my plane, and I'll drop you guys off in Palm Beach, and that's what they did. So RFK Jr.'s on the manifest. He said he never went to the island. He got off in Palm Beach, and that's the end of the story. But there are others like Alan Dershowitz who famously said that, Virginia Giuffre may have been a minor, but she gave him a massage and he kept his underwear on. It's like, seriously, dude, you are professor emeritus of law at Harvard University, and that's your defense, that you kept your underwear on. You're 86 years old, and a 16-year-old gave you a massage, but you kept your underwear on. So, we have a right, the American people have a right, but especially the victims have a right to have this thing run to ground.
And of course, obviously, I don't for 1 minute believe that Epstein committed suicide. My friend was at the MDC, the Metropolitan Detention Center.
Yeah, it's nasty.
He said around the same period, and he said that the guards came around every 8 minutes, and that's for people who were not on suicide watch.
In my low security prison, it was every 30 minutes. But at the MDC, which is a maximum security holding penitentiary, where nobody's there permanently, you're there until you're farmed out to another prison, it's every 8 minutes.
So I don't know, it's a weird increment, but every 8 minutes, And he said also the fairy tale about all the cameras being malfunctioning there. He's like, you would never have more than one camera malfunction for just a few minutes because the corrections officers want those cameras operational in case something happens to them and they're assaulted.
It was very different where I was. None of the cameras worked. I told a story today. I was on this podcast this morning. Sorry. Yeah, this is a heck of a storm. It's ridiculous. So I'm sorry if you're losing.
Yeah, it's.
It looks like we lost Ted. Oh my God. Okay. So anyway, when I was in prison, I worked in the chapel. You're back. Okay.
Yeah, we thought we were going to lose you.
When I was in prison, I worked in the chapel. I was a janitor. And the backstory to that is I went to wow.
Oh, I heard that.
Oh, man. I went to the unit manager. As soon as I arrived, I said, look, I have a bachelor's degree in Middle Eastern Studies. I have a master's degree in legislative affairs. I did my PhD casework in international affairs. I'm happy to teach a class or even teach a GED class if you want me to. And the guy gets right in my face. He says, Kiriakou, if I want you to teach a fucking class, I'll ask you to teach a fucking class. Now grab a broom. You're a janitor in the chapel. And I made 16 cents an hour there. But the reason I'm telling you this is that every time I would go in to sweep the chapel, guys would be having sex in there. And the reason they were having sex in there is because the cameras never worked. Just like the stairwell going down to the mailroom. People are constantly busting loins down there because the cameras didn't work. And the hallway to the laundry, constantly, because the cameras didn't work.
Different culture at MDC.
Yeah, I guess.
And apparently, he was on suicide watch. Apparently, he was supposed to be checked more often. And supposedly, he was alone for what, 6.5 hours?
And they shut the little eye hole thing.
Mm-hmm.
Which they weren't supposed to do. They were supposed
to
keep it early or keep it open. Now, also, he was supposed to have a cellmate.
Yes.
Just to make sure he didn't commit suicide. And they put him in with a fucking serial killer who just kind of sat there as he, died. Did his roommate kill him? That was one of the accusations. And to tell you the truth, we just probably will never know. Because there was no camera inside the cell. Now, at my prison...
And yes, the MDC is where Luigi Mangione is.
Yeah, he is. And
by the way, I wrote to him and asked him to let me come and see him for an interview, but never heard back.
Fantastic. Oh, keep writing. Keep writing. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Lulu. I've said some bad words that... Okay, 6 months. That should be okay. All right. All right. So
the 6-month-old doesn't know. So,
no.
Yeah, it's fine.
But what was I going to say? Oh, and P. Diddy's at the MDC Brooklyn too.
That's right.
But anyway,
it was Sam Bankman-Fried. Right?
Oh, I know what I was going to say. And so was Sam Bankman-Fried.
Apparently, he's friends with Diddy.
When you either attempt suicide or talk about attempting suicide, they immediately whisk you. Jeez, oh man, they whisk
I hear that. That's impressive.
Bad. I'm just afraid this tree's going to smash my house. So they take you
your chance to get the insurance company to pay for it.
They take you to this cubicle. So it's glass on 3 sides. You are stripped naked, and they give you a paper smock just to cover yourself with, and then they hire a prisoner. $5 for an 8-hour shift. I'm sorry, $5 for a 4-hour shift, and you just sit there and you stare at the guy for 4 hours, and then you're replaced.
Huh.
And they do this 24 hours a day until you're just not suicidal anymore. That's what they're supposed to do.
Wow.
You 24/7 eyes on so that you don't kill yourself.
You mean not 6.5 hours left alone?
No, not 6.5 hours left alone with no working cameras. A full minute dropping out of the video.
It's also not like he was a high-profile prisoner, right?
Right.
Mean, who's paying attention to him?
Right.
I mean, it's not like the media cared.
I heard the most interesting thing the other day. I heard that R. Kelly was doing mock parole interviews with Sirhan to help him get out. That they're friends. R. Kelly and Sirhan.
That's so awesome.
We have the strangest system here, man.
We really do. All right, let's move on here because we've spent almost the whole show.
Oh my God, we have. Sorry.
Topics. That's all right. All right, so the Democrat. Wow, are you all right?
Yeah, it made a snapping sound in my headphones.
Wow.
Yeah, this is a really bad storm.
Holy shit. All right. Well, hopefully it's not a snuff film here that we're making. So the Democrats have two senators are about to propose a law that would make it against the law for ICE agents to dress the way they have been.
Yeah.
They would have to present ID. They'd have to basically dress they'd have to be like cops. They'd have to have a badge with their name on it. They'd have to show their faces, and so on. Basically, this is, I think, aside from the fact that it is an act of terror for ICE officers to be going through neighborhoods like they did
totally agree
in Los Angeles, dressed like goons. Frankly, it's for the ICE agents' own personal safety, because honestly, if you are abducted off the street by people who you can't identify as government agencies, you can legally use deadly force to defend yourself. And yes, you'll have a hard time, and yes, you'll be beaten up in jail, but you'll walk. You will walk because you have that Second Amendment right to defend yourself, and it's going to happen. Absolutely. And you're already seeing ICE agents are just reviled and despised. There's this crazy incident that happened in Texas where at the Prairieland Detention Center in Alvarado, 11 young people, many of them apparently leftists, set off fireworks to lure the ICE agents out of the facility. Then they started shooting at them when they came out. Fired off at least 20 to 30 rounds. One cop got shot in the neck. We don't know how serious that was. All these people are in custody. But the point is, I got to say, I bet a lot of people that a lot of communities read about that, and they weren't terribly sad. And that's wrong. That's because this situation has gotten really toxic. I would blame the tactics that the administration is letting ICE use. And I don't buy for 1 minute the whole, we're getting doxxed, they're threatening our families. Whatever, you're law enforcement officers.
Yeah.
That comes with the territory. You have people in America have the right to confront their accuser, and they have the right, before they go with anyone, to know who's taking them into custody. They have that right under our Constitution. It goes back to the very, very beginning of our republic. And to add to all that, now there's a spate of people using the disguising themselves as ICE agents, going around committing crimes. There's a guy named Carl Bennett, 37 years old, arrested in Raleigh, North Carolina. He allegedly impersonated an ICE officer and raped a woman at a Motel 6. He showed a business card with a badge. I guess that's more than the real ICE officers do. She should have been clued in by the fact that he had at least a fake badge and threatened to deport her if she didn't have sex with him. Yeah. A guy in Philly wearing a tactical vest simply labeled security enforcement agent robbed an auto shop while posing as an ICE agent.
Oh my God.
Detained a 50-year-old Dominican woman using zip ties and made off with $1,000. A guy in Texas posed as an ICE agent to rob a couple. He blocked their car and demanded cash. They availed themselves of their Second Amendment rights. They fought back. The wife and husband fired at him, shot him. He took off in the hospital now. And I have a lot more cases like this. Those are just the few that that drew my attention. This is happening all over the place. I mean, this is kind of like what's happening with the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. You could see that these tactics would cause a lot of problems from all perspectives, and now they are.
I think you are exactly right. This is exceedingly dangerous. It's only going to get worse unless Congress puts a stop to it. Because the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, she's not going to change policy to make that. Oh yeah, it's just not going to happen. Thank you, Marble. Thank you very much. In California, Gavin Newsom has been focused on this over at least the last week, and that's a good thing. But he doesn't have the federal authority to force ICE to wear identifying insignias or badges or to force them to take their masks off. This has to come from the administration. It has to, and it's not. Mm-hmm. Now, Congress is trying to act on it, but then again, the administration could file a federal suit saying, separation of powers. This is an executive branch decision. It's not up to Congress to decide if ICE can wear masks or not wear masks, or can be plain clothes or not plain clothes. Now, we all know right from wrong here on this issue. Yeah. The question is anybody going to do the right thing?
Apparently not. I mean, not unless they're forced to. Here in New York State, we have a law that says that police officers have to identify themselves. They can't wear masks. They have to show. They used to before a police riot, they would cover their badges with their badge numbers with a strip of a black band.
That's right.
Before they went crazy.
That's right.
And then that law passed, and they can't do that. They have to show their badges. And it doesn't help also that the kind of gear that the ICE agents wear, it's all like a hodgepodge of stuff that they seem to have picked up at the police surplus outlet. It's not all the same. It's like some of it just says like special officer or police.
Yes,
or
exactly.
Agent. I mean, I could buy that stuff on eBay right now. So could you. Anyone could. It doesn't prove anything. And so it's kind of like if you have every right to run away from or resist someone who you don't know who they are.
You know what, Ted? On January 6th, early in the morning, I went to meet my friend and lawyer, Bruce Fine. His office is on Capitol Hill. It's just 2 blocks from the Senate. So, of course, it was an armed camp. I couldn't get anywhere near. I had to park my car literally half a mile away, and walk to Bruce's office. Bruce just happens to be across the street from the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. And so when I walked up there were a dozen guys all taking their shirts off. And the shirts that they were taking off were all Bureau of Prisons shirts. And they were putting on unmarked polo shirts. And I heard one of them say, "Now remember, we don't have to tell anybody who we are." And I stopped and I looked like, "Oh, you fascist bastards." And I went in, I mentioned it to Bruce, and he said, "It's going to be a hell of a day. We should probably get out of here."
That was very good lawyerly advice.
Yeah.
So, I mean, am I too naive, John, in hoping that possibly we might be able to see some bipartisanship here, that some Republicans might cross the aisle for not because they care about the kind of imagery that we just saw in LA at MacArthur Park, but because they don't want ICE agents to be killed, which they're going to be. 100% they're going to be, and this is for their own good. Do you think, could you see some Republicans joining Democrats in supporting this legislation?
Yes, I would have said no 2 weeks ago, but today I would say yes. This is one of those things that is going to command bipartisanship, because the truth of the matter, Ted, is Republicans aren't going to be in power forever. So what happens when the Democrats are running ICE and going after, Republican favorites? Or maybe it's not ICE, maybe it's the FBI, or it's the ATF, or one of those other bad 3-letter agencies. So this is something I would expect to see bipartisanship on. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. All right. Well, I hope we're there. What do you make of the 11? I mean, I have to get into this. I mean, these 11 young people who attacked the ICE station. I mean, that seems like a French resistance operation. We don't really see that kind
Ted,
of thing in the United States.
It's like these Canadian soldiers that were arrested this morning plotting to overthrow the Canadian government and to carve out a piece of Quebec and make their own country.
Right. Yeah.
What the heck is going on, people?
Things are really coming apart at the seams here, right?
Seriously, this bothered me, and this is exactly what progressives ought to fear. It's one thing to oppose something like Cop City outside Atlanta, right? That's God's work as far as I'm concerned. But to just, initiate violence against federal officers, it's just not the way to succeed.
But you can really easily see how people can work.
Absolutely. I understand it. I don't condone it.
It's like the mentality that during the peak of the Vietnam War, when the radicals from the Weather Underground worked themselves into a lather, thinking there was no other choice but the violent overthrow of the state. Right. I mean, believe me, I'm sympathetic to that argument. I don't,
Ted, along a similar line,
you just get arrested and you hurt people.
Did you happen to catch this news today that it was Republicans that killed their own idea to sell off federal lands for development?
No.
It was so fascinating. A week ago, the White House said, we want to sell off all this federal land and, we're going to mine it. And
part of the big, beautiful bill, I think. Yeah.
Yes. Well, Republicans now killed it because Hakeem Jeffries said, what a great idea. We should sell off this federal land and use it to build affordable housing for poor people. And the Republicans were like, oh my God, we can't do that. So now it's done.
Yeah, maybe they're starting to. I mean, I don't really. We talked a little bit about Carville, but I mean, I do think he's right that the House is going to go back to the Republicans next year.
The Democrats.
Yeah, and
that's so.
Yeah, and Republicans in the House are starting to be like, we better get ready for that and make preparations. Time to batten the hatches. Let's talk about AI.
And this is
AI. We don't know who it is, an unidentified, like an ICE agent, as unidentified as an ICE agent, imposter used a Signal account, Signal, and this administration, to pretend that they were little Marco Rubio.
Yep.
And they reached out to 3 foreign ministers. We don't know who they were. A U.S. governor, a Congress member, and maybe my cat. I don't know. This happened right after Susie Wiles, chief of staff for Trump in the White House, also had something like this happen. So when I wrote this book, I wrote it really about 10 years ago. It only came out 5 years ago because we were slow, me and my partner who put it together. But Pablo Callejo. But basically, we had this idea like, what if someone used this to create this technology to create geopolitical mayhem? Yeah. If you can't tell credibly, I mean, even visually, but particularly, through voice, like, if I remember when I won the Robert F. Kennedy Journalism Award. It was the first major journalism award.
Did you really?
I did in 1990.
That's wonderful.
Thank you. And so I was working a day job. I came back from lunch, and there's while you were out, with the 703 number, which is Virginia, and it's Ethel Kennedy called. So I'm pretty sure it's my friend Dan, who loved to do stuff like this. He knew it applied for the RFK Journalism Award. I didn't win any awards back then. Nobody liked my work. I was like totally on the out. So I call up the number. I go, fuck you, Dan. Like, just eat shit, blow me, click. The phone rings again, and I hear this very distinctive voice, for a certain generation, like a very distinctive voice. I'm like, oh shit, 703, that's Virginia. I know they have a house there. Ethel Kennedy. And it's like,
oh my
I ID'd her through her voice. I knew it was her. I mean, if your parent calls, it's your dad, it's your mom. It's like, but now you can't.
Right.
Like anybody could record, don't get any ideas, but anyone could record this program and basically feed hours of us talking into this program. And then it'll make us you could also use our images, and it'll make our facial or mouth motions fit the syllables We could maybe even be speaking in a foreign language. I mean, it's crazy, right? Fluently in a foreign language that we don't even speak. So this is dangerous, right? You can easily imagine like someone, I don't know, the president of Moldova, decide fake call the president of Poland and saying, blow me.
Yeah, make a war between Armenia and Azerbaijan. Who would be the wiser?
No one. So the point is, what's to stop this? Is there going to be like sort of a world leader's going to have sort of a 3D CAPTCHA in order to authenticate communications between each other?
Oh my God. Could you imagine? Yeah, this is very dangerous, and literally no one has any ideas yet how to stop it.
I mean, we're really lucky that nothing bad has happened yet.
Yes.
It's only been used for fun. I mean, imagine if Al-Qaeda had used this.
Imagine.
I mean, ISIS, they're very sophisticated. I mean, or at least they were. I mean, it's only a matter of time. And I don't know. I was wondering, as a it seems to me like probably they're going to need to start authenticating their their IDs, and that's going to slow down communications. You're not going to be able to have like Trump's got a problem. He's got to pick up and he's got to talk to President Xi within minutes. I mean, I think about this story my father told me about sort of a close call during the Cold War when there was a glitch in NORAD, and President Carter was informed that it looked like there was an incoming missile about to hit Anchorage, Alaska, and he didn't. They said, they were like, Mr. President, we need to go to DEFCON 4. You really need to consider a retaliatory launch against the Soviet Union. And Carter took a beat, and he used and his first thought was, okay, I'll call up Brezhnev. So he calls up Brezhnev and he says, Hank talks to him, hangs up the phone and says, stand down. They haven't declared war. And they're not attacking us. With all due respect, Mr. President, how do you know? He said he was sleepy. So, well, if you woke up in the middle of the night to start World War III with the United States, even if it's 3 a.m. in Moscow, you're not sleepy. And I know his voice. I talk to him all the time. He had that sleepy sound.
Wow.
And I was like, so how, that rapport between world leaders has prevented countless catastrophes in the past. This throws all of that into question.
Man, that really lays it bare. That's a great story. It does. It calls everything into question.
And we're just racing towards oblivion, right? I mean, Sam Altman and his OpenAI, I'm still banned. So is everyone who's ever said anything bad about Sam Altman or OpenAI is literally banned. We don't exist. I mean, it's in this technology. I mean, it seems like this is before a society develops and launches headlong into a radically exciting but also dangerous technology. I mean, we should listen to Elon Musk and all the other tech guys who said, please, government, regulate us. We need to be regulated. And nobody's doing it.
Amber asks a good question here. With the advent of AI, can voice and video evidence in court cases realistically, literally, be relied on or even be admissible anymore? That's going to throw a wrench into the entire system.
I have some insight about this, John. I'm curious I'm sure you know about this too. So in my lawsuit against the LA Times, the crucial bit of evidence was an audio recording purportedly made by my arresting officer. And so that was what was in question, right? The LAPD gave this audio recording to the LA Times to try to discredit me. And so one of the big questions was, well, is it authentic? Does it show what it supposedly purports to show? And has it been modified? Well, so there's a whole technology called audio enhancement and authentication, also video enhancement and authentication. But it's really like hard. You need like serious experts to do this. One of the guys who was involved in my case actually authenticated the Zapruder film, right, of the Kennedy.
Wow.
And he, as much of an expert as he was, he fucked up. He represented the LA Times and he was wrong. We later proved that he was wrong. So basically, yeah, the either the LAPD or the LA Times modified the recording.
Wow.
Prove that. But it's basically like an art, and they can use it to solve. That's admissible in court. Like you can say, if we have this audio recording of whatever person talking, a gunshot, we can use it, but it has to be authenticated. And for it to be authenticated, you have to have the recording device with which it was made, which the LA Times and the LAPD did not have. So it was never authenticatable. And so it's like there's all this science to it. They're going to have to come up with some kind of analogy here for AI, where you're going to have to be able to analyze, is there a difference? Like you and I, we've talked about these scams on Telegram where like the fake AI Asian girls, like, hey cutie, what's up?
Get them every single day.
Now, you and I, we all know that AI look, right? There's an AI,
my God.
kind of a fuzzy.
They all look exactly the same. They're all climbing out of swimming pools.
And they're all kind of airbrushed and low res, but they're getting better all the time. And we're going to get to a point where no one, including an expert, can tell the difference.
Yes.
Right.
I think that's exactly right.
That's going to be, so to answer that question, I don't think, I think it's going to be very hard to say, it'll be really easy for police departments to fake evidence against defendants. And like it'll be very easy for them to modify body camera footage that shows them abusing a suspect and show them being assaulted instead.
Yeah.
I mean, you've seen AI. I don't know if you've seen some of the crazy AI stuff where there's like someone modified Olympic footage of Olympic diving, and they modified it to show like incredibly obese people.
Oh yeah, I've seen those.
Or cats
on TikTok. Yeah,
or cats, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and it's like, whoa. I mean, that looks real. There's the silly ones on Facebook where the animals are saving babies' lives, like a wolf comes and saves a baby from an alligator or something, and you're like, what? Why would that happen?
I haven't seen that one yet.
But it's just like, look, animals are cool. But,
oh my God.
But it's like it's getting so we're past the uncanny valley. We're right into 97, 99 and 44, 100% real.
I wonder how many people are going to get that.
Very few. I bet our listeners will get it. But that's a very old-timey reference.
Yes.
Very old-timey. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, what do you think? I mean,
part of the problem is that the technology is advancing so quickly. A year ago, Netflix came out with a documentary series about Andy Warhol. I'm the world's biggest and greatest Andy Warhol fan. I've got 4 Warhols here.
Nice.
Behind me. That's his personal desk lamp up there. I bought it at auction. The sticker you see on it is the sticker that says the estate of Andy Warhol. I have his candelabra. Anyway,
I have a cartoon that's at his library in the permanent collection at his museum in Pittsburgh.
At the Andy Warhol Museum, Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
I'm an annual contributor.
Good.
So this thing came out a year ago, and it was loosely based on the Andy Warhol diaries. But what they did is they got AI to narrate the series in Warhol's voice. So I know Warhol's voice very, very well, and it was 97% right on. But you could tell, if you really listened, that it was computer generated. And now, just a year later, you can't tell. It's not possible to tell.
No.
Thank you, Houdini. Thank you. Yeah, Warhol was a major hoarder, and it was because he grew up so poor.
I knew someone who helped clean out his New York studio, Warhol's New York studio. And speaking of hoarders, so for people, flat files are these giant files for posters and artwork that people like me have.
Yes.
And anyway, they were clearing out his studio after he passed. By the way, the way Andy Warhol died is crazy,
awful.
Right?
Absolutely
like a rich dude like that, basically in his own private ward in a fancy Upper East Side hospital.
They hired a nurse's aide to sit there just in case he had a problem. She fell asleep, and he died of heart failure after having a splenectomy.
And he hadn't had any water in ages. They opened his mouth and there were maggots in there. But anyway, the hoarder thing. So my friend who helped clean out told this story. I don't really remember the context of maybe, why he was part of this team. But anyway, they said that they found a bag of uncut diamonds jammed in the back of a flat file.
God almighty.
It's the kind of guy he was.
That was Warhol. I practically stalked him when I was in college. I wanted to meet him so badly. Before we run out of time, though, and we're out of time, but Hans Eli has a good question about stolen valor. Is there a CIA equivalent? You bet there is. There's a story that I tell.
Tell me what stolen valor is first.
Oh, yeah. Stolen valor is people who are fakes, like people who claim to be, recipients of the Congressional Medal of Honor. They wear military outfits that don't make any sense, or they'll wear BDUs but with Nikes, and they're stealing the bravery of our uniformed.
Well, there's the classic. There's the senator, right, from Connecticut.
Yes,
Chris Dodd.
Yes, Chris Dodd. He
ran for president, for Senate, and claimed that he was a Vietnam combat veteran. That was not.
He was not. Well, I was in the Fox News green room one time, and when Tucker Carlson still had his show, I was waiting to go on, and I'm in the green room with this guy who I didn't recognize, and he says to me, "Are you going on Tucker?" And I said, "Yeah." "Are you?" And he said, "Yeah." And he said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "CIA. I was at CIA for a long time. How about you?" And he said, "Yeah, I was too." And I said, "Oh," and this is the first question CIA people ask each other when they meet. What directorate were you in?
Right.
Okay, there are only 4 answers. Operations, intelligence, science and technology, or administration. He said, "I was in ops." Okay, nobody would really say ops. You would say, "I was in the DO," or "I was in the Directorate of Operations." You would never say ops. But I let it slide. Malcolm Nance. I've actually written about Malcolm Nance and his stolen valor. That phony. So because he said ops, I followed up with another question. And I said, "What division were you in?" So this could be Near East operations, counterterrorism, counterintelligence, this one, that one, European operations, whatever. And he says, I was in black ops, wet work. I did all that shit. And I was like, oh no. Well, then I got called in to go to talk to Tucker. So Tucker's not like Jesse Waters is today, where you're on for literally 15 seconds and then it's over. Tucker would let me sit there for 20 minutes and we would have a conversation. So we're talking, and then we go to a commercial break. And during the commercial break, I said, "Tucker, this guy that you have coming on after me,
he's a bullshitter."
I said, "I think he's faking it." He said, "What? Why? How?" And I said, "He doesn't know the lingo. I think he's just bullshitting it." He's like, "Okay, thanks for telling me." Well, I kind of forgot about it. And then 6 months later, he's in the Washington Post. He's been arrested and charged with, of all things, mortgage fraud. Because what he did is he bought a house and he went to the bank to get a mortgage. And he said, "Listen, I make like $1 million a year, but I can't tell you. I can't show you any paperwork because deep cover, wet work, special black ops at the CIA." And these morons gave him the loan. And
yeah, I've known some bankers like that.
Yeah. He couldn't make the loan, and then they did an investigation. The CIA never heard of this guy, and so he ended up getting 5 years. But so that's a long way of saying, yes, there is stolen valor among CIA people too. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I guess it would make perfect sense. Who was that guy? The dinner, the cups of tea guy in Afghanistan. Do you know who I'm talking about? The guy who was claimed to be building schools in Afghanistan.
Yes.
And now I remember, so he claimed to have spent, he was like, "I'm always in Afghanistan." Now, So
what?
And I'm like, okay, so I've been there 4 times. I've spent a total of about three months of my life there. I'm not an expert, but I've been there. and I, been around. There's entire provinces I've never been to,
Right.
Like Helmand. Wish I would like to. Never made it.
I've been to Helmand. It's grim.
Oh, it looks bleak.
Yeah. I helicoptered into Lashkar-Gah and then helicoptered out as fast as I could.
When you say an Afghan province is bleak, that's
bleak.
So
yeah, anyway, by Afghan standards.
So I remember reading this guy's interviews all the time, and I was really jealous of his bestseller status. And I was always like, this doesn't ring true, right? Like it's just he called. It's like he called things the wrong things.
Yeah.
He didn't seem to know, like, what a Hazara was. He didn't seem to.
What?
He didn't see. You know what I mean? He's just like it just didn't click. And then, sure enough, he was exposed. It was all bullshit. He'd made up the whole thing. And there's a lot of people like that in journalism.
Really?
Well, my favorite. I have a lot of stories like that to tell. There was I knew a guy who worked at Travel and Leisure, and so he gave me a comp to the magazine. Anyway, I'm reading the magazine and there's a review in there about the new train between Mashhad, Iran, and Ashgabat, Turkmenistan. Now, there could theoretically be a train there, but there isn't one there.
Right.
There have been plans on the drawing board for decades, but they've never even started construction. And so, but the article describes the lace curtains on the windows, the tea service, the whole thing. And I called my friend. I'm like, this is bullshit. Like, and it's like, he's like, how do you know? And I'm like, well, I've been to Ashgabat. I've been to Mashhad. There's no fucking train. I wish there were, because I would have taken it. And it's like, it would have been much more convenient than going over land the way I did. But trains go over land, but you know what I mean. And so, anyway, the point is that there's stories like that all the time. I could go another hour, but rather than do that, we can do that another time.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Zohran Mamdani. Zohran Mamdani, new polls are out. The general election is coming out. It wasn't certain how he was going to do. It's like he's going wild. He's pulling further ahead than he was. Here's where we're at.
I got to Google that right now. I want to see those numbers.
35%.
Wow.
Cuomo, 25%. You would think that he'd be last.
Wow,
Sliwa, 14%.
Oh, wow. That's actually respectable.
Adams, the establishment favorite for corporate Democrats and Republicans alike, 11.
God.
11.
Oh, my God, 11%. Okay, so let me ask you then. If Cuomo does end up dropping out of the race, I mean, even that's not enough for Adams to catch Mamdani.
No.
Wow.
I mean, well, here's the thing. I think, honestly, if I look at this as a cold-blooded anti-Mamdani operative, I'm saying Cuomo is my only hope.
Yeah.
I've got to get Adams.
So Adams has to drop out. Yeah. I would agree.
Me there,
and it's still you're right. It still doesn't get you there. So Adams would have to drop out, and literally every single Adams voter would have to go with Cuomo.
Yes,
that's not going to happen.
No,
and even if you combine Adams and Sliwa, you're still 10 percentage points short.
No, and I don't think Adams voters are the same as Sliwa voters.
No, they're not.
So. I mean, so this, to me, this is like, if I'm Sliwa, I'm laughing because I'm doing a lot better than I was. And, of course, so the corporate establishment is freaking out. No major Democrat who's not a Democratic socialist like Bernie or AOC has endorsed Mamdani, with the only exception of New York Congressman, what's his name? The fat one. It'll come to me. Anyway.
The fat one, Nadler.
Nadler, Gerald.
Yeah,
Nadler.
Jerry Nadler. He's quite portly. Yes.
Yeah, he's thinner than he used to be, though. But anyway, so I want to give people credit for their weight loss regimen and for their Mamdani endorsement. But anyway, I'm dying of laughter today. There's a lot of Schadenfreude at how the establishment is freaking out. Are they going to come to Jesus and just endorse him and just be done with it? Or are they just
better
acting like fools?
They better endorse him if they want to keep their party together. Because I mean, look at Barack Obama. in the most recent presidential election, going to Philadelphia and yelling at black men, saying, "You better get out there and vote for her."
Yeah.
Okay, but now there's a Muslim, and Barack Obama's completely silent. So what's that? It's okay for you and your right wingers in the Democratic Party, but then a left winger actually wins a nomination, and you're nowhere to be found. I agree with Nick. I think that they won't.
I don't think they will either.
I think that they won't, and they're just going to hope that they can run somebody against him in 4 years.
They would rather. So then they're going to end up with the worst possible scenario, which is they're going to have the liberal progressive wing of the Democratic Party. I should say the progressive wing of the Democratic Party are going to be alienated deeply, because this is by far the most. He will be the most powerful elected Democratic socialist in U.S. history.
Yes.
And he will control a massive budget of billions of dollars a year, hundreds of billions of dollars.
Bigger than most countries.
Yes. He's going, and he'll own
33 years old.
And when Hakeem Jeffrey calls, he doesn't really have to take the call if he doesn't feel like it. He's like, I'm scratching my butt right now. Oh, I'm doing Muslim shit right now. I'm busy.
That's right.
I'm doing Sharia shit.
Exactly.
So he doesn't. And then also at the same time, the corporate Democrats, if he fails, he can say, well, it's not my fault. I didn't get the support from my party. So, you know what I mean? It's a bad move for them no matter what.
Yeah, I agree with you. They're in a real pickle, and I think they're going to shoot themselves in the foot.
Well, that's where we are. All right. Are we deprogrammed?
I'm deprogrammed.
I'm deprogrammed too. And you survived are the thunderstorms gone?
Yeah, they're gone. They're gone, and the tree didn't fall down, so I survived.
I can see clearly. All right. We will be. Are we doing Friday or not? This Friday?
We can.
All right. Friday, 5 p.m.
Awesome.
Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern time. It will be back. Thank you, everyone. Please like, follow, and share the show. We know you're out there. 191 people watching on YouTube alone. So that's not counting you Rumblers. We love you too. Anyway, thanks for watching.
Thanks, everybody.
See you Friday.
Thank you.